While Squid Game topped Netflix charts worldwide, real survival games were playing out just miles from Seoul at Kim Jong-un's private dinner table. A 10-year-old boy made the wrong comment about the leader's daughter. Within hours, he vanished as if he never existed. Americans know North Korea through movies and memes. Today, you'll hear the reality from someone who lived inside the propaganda. This is the story Hollywood can't imagine because it's too horrifying to be fiction. Bridge the gap. Subscribe to connect with stories from the other side of the DMZ. Your views amplify voices the regime tried to silence forever. Get that child out of my sight right now. How dare she speak like that in front of us? We need to teach her a lesson. Handle it. Leave no trace. Make it like it never happened. This brutal order came from Kim Jong-un's private quarters. Overnight, it erased a child from existence. Risolju's twisted pride. A ruthless power struggle over the Baekdu Bloodline. And somewhere in that darkness, a mother lost her precious son and found herself staring down death. What really happened that day at the heart of power? When a state decides to erase a human life, the cruelty is unspeakable. This is that story. That dinner still makes my hands shake. The table was covered in expensive dishes, but the air felt suffocating. My brother Kim Jong-un sat there with Ri Sol-ju and the children. On the surface, it looked like family bonding. But it wasn't. It was a test, a silent battlefield of rank and hierarchy. My son had just turned 10. He was an ordinary boy, but growing up at the center of power had made him proud. The incident happened halfway through the meal. Ju-ae, my brother's daughter, sat near the head of the table. She was receiving special treatment. My son noticed. It bothered him. Suddenly, he put down his spoon. He stared directly at Ju-ae. Ju-ae, do you really think sitting there makes you the boss? My mother told me something. She said women have to step back eventually. This seat is for a man who will lead the country someday, not for a girl like you. Silence. Complete silence. The servers froze mid-motion. The air turned to ice. This wasn't a children's argument. It was a challenge to my brother's authority, a denial of his chosen successor. Risolju reacted first. She was usually composed, always smiling. Not this time. Her lips trembled. Her eyes turned cold. Ice cold. She stared at my son like she wanted to burn a hole through him. That chill spread across the entire room. My heart felt like it would explode out of my chest. I grabbed my son's arm. I bowed my head. The boy doesn't know better. Please forgive this terrible mistake. Brother, sister-in-law, please be understanding. I apologized over and over. I scolded my son right there. But Ri Sol-ju didn't respond. She just turned to my brother and looked at him. What scared me more was my brother's reaction. He said nothing. He just watched. He stared at my son with a blank face. I couldn't read him. That made it worse. The meal ended quickly. In the car going home, I held my son's hand. It was ice cold. I pulled him close and whispered, "Never, ever say that again." But inside, I was already burning up. Ri Sol-ju's twisted expression. My brother's unnatural silence. These weren't just signs of displeasure. They were warnings. A storm was coming for our family. That night, I couldn't sleep. I paced the living room in the dark. Everything started at that table. I'd grown up watching power destroy people over a single word, but I never imagined that blade would turn toward my own child. That dinner was the last time we were together as a family. It was the beginning of the end for my son. The days after felt eerily quiet, but it was the calm before the attack. At first I thought, kids fight. They'll let it go. I was naive. I'd forgotten how power works here. At the top, silent glances are more dangerous than public criticism. While I relaxed, Ri Sol-ju was already making her intentions clear to those around her. She didn't criticize openly. Instead, she spoke coldly to her inner circle. We should handle the child issue before it becomes a bigger problem. That one sentence wasn't a complaint. It was an order. A vertical command sent straight to the security lines and the organization and guidance department. The word handle is the cruelest word in our society. It doesn't mean educate or scold. It means erase, remove from sight, push into the darkness. That single word from Ri Sol-ju set a precise machine in motion. Gears started turning in the dark corners of Pyongyang. I had no idea. I went about my daily life, but I felt the air changing around me. The guards watching our house looked at me differently. Their eyes were colder. Wives of officials I'd been close to stopped answering my calls. It felt like an invisible wall was rising around our home. People were isolating us. They already knew. Our family had been marked for handling. My son's fate had already slipped from my hands. Ri Sol-ju's words became documents in the State Security Department. They became directives in the organization department. And I? I was listening to my son laugh, completely unaware. He didn't know anything. He promised me, "Mom, I won't fight with Jue anymore." Hearing that broke my heart. The machine was already opening its jaws to swallow him, and I couldn't stop him from walking into it. The most chilling part? Ri Sol-ju still smiled gracefully at official events. Behind that smile was a cold, calculated intent. I didn't see it. I didn't realize that her words, "We should handle it," were tightening a noose around my son's neck. Power can kill without spilling blood. It can destroy a family without firing a single shot. I saw the warning signs but couldn't read them. I was just a helpless mother, hoping the storm would pass us by. But the gears were already turning. Our peace was shattering. It was an ordinary Tuesday morning. My son tied his young pioneer necktie neatly. He headed to Pyongyang-no, one middle school. "Mother, I'm leaving," he said, saluting. That small hand waving goodbye that was the last time I saw my son. Dusk fell. The curfew announcement echoed through Pyongyang. But my son didn't come home. At first, I thought maybe his teacher had scolded him. But as night deepened, my heart started pounding out of control. I rushed to the school. The moment I walked through the gate, something felt wrong. The classmates who'd walked to school with my son that very morning, they saw me and ran. They scattered like I was contagious. I grabbed the homeroom teacher and demanded to know where my son was. Terror filled his eyes. He couldn't even look at me. He mumbled in a low voice, "There is no such student in our registry." My heart stopped. My son had attended this school for over 6 years, and now his teacher was denying his existence. I went mad. I used my position to comb through state security systems and resident registries. The result was devastating. My son's name wasn't just missing. It was gone, completely erased, like he'd never existed. A Central Party security official snapped at me coldly. "Why are you looking for someone who doesn't exist? Keep this up, and we'll have to question your own ideology." I went home and opened my son's room. I collapsed without even screaming. Everything was gone. His medals, his diary, even a single shoe he'd worn that morning vanished. The family photo on the wall was even more horrifying. Someone had cut it precisely. The space where my son stood was now just an empty hole. When the state decides to erase someone, it leaves nothing behind. Not even a photograph. This wasn't a kidnapping. This wasn't a disappearance. This was deletion. When you fall out of favor with the party and the leader, you're erased from existence. Neighbors who used to laugh with us. Guards who saw us every day. They all erased my son from their memories like they'd made a pact. The world I knew had become a giant tomb that swallowed my child overnight. I knelt on the empty floor, scratching it with my nails. That's when I understood. This wasn't a country where I could raise my children. This was a monster, ready to rip out my heart at any moment. Despair turned to cold hatred. If this country erased my son's existence, I would expose this country's true face to the world. But I had no time to grieve. The same dark hand that erased my son was now reaching for my daughter's throat. After my son disappeared, one scene replayed in my mind like a nightmare. Ri Sol-ju's cold stare, my brother's eerie silence. It wasn't just anger. It was an unspoken death sentence. My son was being erased from this land. I couldn't sleep. I paced the living room. The family photo on the wall with its gaping hole seemed to mock me. I needed proof. I had to know where my son went. Who took him? I secretly called a key official from the Central Party's organization department. I'd done him a big favor once. I thought he'd risk his life to tell me the truth. We met in a quiet Pyongyang park. His face was ashen. He couldn't look me in the eye. He kept glancing around nervously. "Comrade, please stop. The child issue. It's better for you not to ask anymore." That one sentence made my heart sink. I pressed him harder. He finally made up his mind and whispered even lower. "After that dinner, special orders went to the Guard Command's Special Direct Unit. You know that line, don't you? It's controlled by Ri Sol-ju's inner circle." With those words, he fled. Ri Sol-ju's inner circle. Those words stabbed into my chest like a knife. In that moment, doubt became certainty. My son's disappearance wasn't an accident. Ri Sol-ju's words, "We should handle it," had been carried out. I went near Ri Sol-ju's office. I wanted to see if her face showed even a trace of guilt or hesitation. But from afar, she looked elegant as always, smiling. Greeting foreign guests. One woman's jealousy and pride had destroyed a mother's entire world. My whole body trembled. There was no proof. Documents were gone. Witnesses stayed silent. But the reason was crystal clear. My son had dared to challenge Ju-A's authority as heir to the Baekdu bloodline. That arrogance was his downfall. I was certain. No proof, but the reason was obvious. I repeated those words to myself hundreds of times. No one in Pyongyang would help me now. Every eye watching me seemed ready to push me into the abyss. That night, I sat in the dark, staring at a cup of cold tea. I made my decision. The brutal power that dragged my son away was now coming for me and my daughter. Doubt was over. To survive, and to tell this horrific truth to the world, I knew what I had to do. If I couldn't find my son, at least I wouldn't let my daughter become the next sacrifice at this monstrous table. I couldn't give up. My son had vanished without a trace. My heart felt like it was burning from the inside. Every day, I went to the State Security Department and the Ministry of Social Security like it was my own home. I grabbed officials by their pant legs and begged. But as time passed, things got stranger. The more I struggled to find my son, the more my support network crumbled. A classmate official who'd promised to help secretly, he was suddenly transferred to a remote area in Chagang province. A loyal messenger who worked under me disappeared one morning without a sound. This wasn't just can't find him. The state machinery was mocking me, making it impossible to find him. Every path I tried to take had already been blocked. Whenever I tried to speak, people scattered like I had a contagious disease. Fear revealed itself in unexpected places. My name started disappearing from Central Committee Standing Committee meeting lists. In official photos with my brother, my image was cleverly pushed to the background, or deleted entirely. Once I tried to confront my brother directly, but guards stopped me at his office entrance. Just yesterday, these same men had bowed to me. Now they held their rifles and blocked me with cold eyes. Orders from above. Please restrain yourself for now. Hearing their emotionless voices, I felt my blood run backward. Ri Sol-ju and her inner circle had built an invisible wall that completely isolated me. Then a thought pierced my mind. It went beyond worry for my son. It was primal terror. If this country erased my son without a trace, why would they spare my daughter, who's just learning to speak? Once that thought took hold, goosebumps covered my body. My teeth chattered. My son had already been sacrificed. Now the blade was aimed at my daughter's throat. The more I searched for my son, the more justification they built to take my last hope, my daughter. Being pushed from the center of power means death. I had to swallow my rage and face cold reality. Pyongyang was now my son's grave, and my daughter's execution ground. It's not that I can't find him. They're making it impossible. I looked down at my sleeping daughter's face in the dark room. I made my decision. Before the darkness that swallowed my son could cover my daughter too, I had to escape this giant tomb. It was time to stop searching. Time to prepare for survival. Time to run. Pyongyang nights were quiet, but inside our home, the silence felt like a powder keg about to explode. I waited for my husband to come home. I turned off the study light and sat in the darkness. My husband was a key military official. He knew what was happening. But for days, we hadn't even spoken our missing son's name to each other. When I heard the door open and he walked in, I grabbed his sleeve with trembling hands. I led him to a sealed room. Terrified of listening devices, I turned the radio up loud to create noise. We don't even know if our son is alive or dead. Or maybe he's already gone from this world. My first words made my husband's shoulders shake visibly. I looked him straight in the eye. One thing's certain. This country didn't hesitate for even 1 second to erase our son. Our daughter is next. Actually, you and me too. Our entire family will be wiped from the records. My husband grabbed my mouth at first. He resisted firmly. Are you insane? Do you know where we are? You want to throw away our status and privilege? Where would we even go? If we just lay low, another chance will come. Fear and attachment mixed in his voice. He'd spent his entire life loyal to the regime. To him, defection was unimaginable treason. I shook him and cried out, "Another chance? What's the point of a chance we have to beg for from the people who killed our son? Will you say the same thing if our daughter disappears tomorrow morning?" That's when it happened. Our daughter, sleeping in the next room, mumbled in her sleep, "Brother?" That faint voice echoed through the silent room. My husband's eyes shook violently. He stared toward our daughter's room for a long time. Then his head dropped weakly. I saw thick tears fall onto his knees. Those were tears of letting go. His last attachment to the regime. "Is there a way?" my husband asked in a very low voice. That question was his consent, his agreement to cross the line of death. I whispered the plan I'd drawn in my mind tens of thousands of times. Crossing the river or finding brokers won't work for us. That's all monitored already. We need to use our positions, our official channels. We disappear from the highest place in the most legitimate way possible. That night, we stayed awake until dawn. We didn't pack bags. We emptied our hearts. Defection wasn't an escape from hunger. It was a desperate war to protect our dignity as human beings and our child. If we fail, all three of us die right there. My husband's grim words made me grip my daughter's hand tightly. The fear remained, but at least we weren't going to sit helplessly anymore. Pyongyang's dawn sky was brightening. It would be the last dawn we'd see in this place. On the day of escape, the air at Pyongyang Sunan International Airport felt unusually cold and sharp. Our family posed as part of an official delegation accompanying an overseas diplomatic event. We wore gleaming portrait badges on our chests. We forced loyalty onto our faces. But inside my coat pocket, my palm holding my daughter's hand was already soaked with nervous sweat. Our bags didn't contain spare clothes. They contained only our grim determination to bite our tongues and die if necessary. The biggest hurdle was the airport's final checkpoint. A state security inspector I knew was being unusually thorough with our documents. "Comrade, isn't it unusual for a child to accompany you to this destination?" he asked quietly. Cold sweat ran down my back. My husband barked back with more authority than usual. "Are you questioning Central Party special orders? Do I need to show you the deployment chart from above again?" His fierce tone made the inspector flinch. He stamped our papers. I finally let out the breath I'd been holding. The real war started right after we arrived at the third country airport. State security agents, so-called shadows, followed us to monitor our every move. They even stood guard outside the bathroom. We'd already contacted an informant named Mr. Kang through my husband's military connections. He knew the safest route to the South Korean embassy. I didn't miss the brief moment when the agent got distracted talking to another delegation member. "Now," my husband signaled quietly. We threw ourselves into the freight elevator and headed to the underground parking garage. In a corner of the garage, a black sedan sat with its engine running. Mr. Kang had sent it. We dove into the car. Mr. Kang checked us in the rearview mirror and hit the gas urgently. State security has already started blocking airport exits. It's a 20-minute drive to the embassy, but for them, it'll be the longest 20 minutes. As Mr. Kang predicted, two black vehicles began chasing us with loud sirens. Professional agents sent from Pyongyang. A car chase erupted in the middle of the city. Every time a chase vehicle rammed our side and threatened us, my daughter screamed. I held her tight in my arms and prayed to heaven, "Please, just let us reach that door." When we saw the South Korean flag flying at the embassy, one of the state security vehicles swerved sharply to block us. In that instant, Mr. Kang didn't hesitate. He drove over the sidewalk and charged straight toward the embassy gate. "Asylum! We're requesting asylum to South Korea," my husband shouted through the window at the top of his lungs. The embassy gate opened. Local armed police blocked the state security vehicle's approach. In that brief moment, we jumped out of the car and ran like mad into the embassy. Behind us, state security agents yelled, "You traitor bastards!" and rushed forward. But the embassy's iron gate closed with a heavy sound. It was faster. Beyond the gate, we could hear the agents' furious curses. But the moment we saw the South Korean flag waving in the embassy courtyard, we collapsed to the ground. All the tension released. It felt like our entire bodies were melting. An embassy staff member ran over to help us up. "You're safe now. Welcome to South Korean soil." I held my husband's hand and cried endlessly. This escape, more brutal and desperate than crossing a river, breaking through the heart of power, finally ended under the protection of the South Korean embassy. We'd crossed the threshold, not toward death, but toward a land of hope. The moment the heavy iron gate of the South Korean embassy closed, the courtyard erupted. Our family, well known through North Korean intelligence sources, had burst in covered in blood and sweat, declaring asylum. The shock on the embassy staff's faces is unforgettable. "Is this really her?" Voices stammered everywhere. Urgent cables flew back and forth with the home government. The entire embassy went on emergency alert. We were immediately taken to a room completely sealed from the outside. The investigation that started that night was strict and thorough. Why did Kim Yo-jong defect with her family? What changes are happening inside North Korea's power structure? Sharp questions poured out. Because we were high-level defectors, they investigated every word, every past action under a microscope. They considered the possibility of staged defection. Throughout the interrogation, I felt that the authority and pride I once had meant nothing here. But I felt relieved. This time, in a narrow interrogation room, questioned all night, felt 100 times more human than those hellish days in Pyongyang, running from my son's disappearance. When we finally boarded a military plane under heavy guard and arrived at Seongnam Airport, I saw Seoul's dazzling night view. I thought about it. That glamorous mansion and privilege in Pyongyang, it was just a prison without bars. Life in South Korea was different from what I expected. In North Korea, everything was provided without lifting a finger. Here, I had to learn from scratch how to shop at a mart, how to ride the subway. Coming down from the peak of power to live as an ordinary defector is sometimes unfamiliar and hard. But haggling with vendors at the market, there's real warmth in this small chaos. I'm learning what life truly means. Sometimes I look out the window and think, I tried to find my son and saw my country's true face. I left that cold land and gained freedom instead. My son never made it here. He was erased somewhere with no name and no grave. But he's still alive in my heart. This ordinary daily life, cooking rice, breathing, brushing my daughter's hair, is actually a precious legacy my son traded his life for. The glory of the past is gone. I live now as an ordinary neighbor, but my heart is richer than ever. At least here, I don't lose sleep worrying that my child might disappear. Thank you for listening to my long story. Some people ask why someone who lived well in North Korea would leave. But what good is glamorous power to a parent who can't protect their child? I'm now an ordinary member of this land. I'm grateful every moment for the value of freedom. I live my life working hard. I hope my testimony becomes a small light of comfort for the countless souls who died silently in North Korea. Your warm support through subscriptions and likes brings great hope to our North Korean compatriots trapped in silence. I pray that your hands, joined together, will bring the day when separated families reunite and share a meal with smiles. Thank you sincerely for listening to my rough story today. Stay healthy and happy always.